beautiful voyage. Hawthorn have done it.
Hello, I'm Damien Barrett and welcome to Access All Areas on Australia's #1 site for footy. There were some big winners on the weekend and a few sore and sorry losers. What was your highlight from the round, Matthew Lloyd?
Damon, it goes back to Friday night, North Melbourne, the real deal. I didn't believe it probably going into the game, but I thought their defensive work, where they've always been vulnerable, last line of defence, has got much better around the ground. They dismantled the Western Bulldogs. They just couldn't score. So they're the big winner for mine because their confidence is growing. To a genuine premiership chance by the week.
OK, how many genuine premiership chances are there after round 6?
We take a look at the ladder, Damo. I think that premiership chances, I think it's the most even top 8 we've seen in years because, you know, Hawthorn are down in 8th. I think the gap's really closed on them. But probably my favourites are the top 3, North, Geelong and Sydney, and then down to Hawthorn in 8th. Probably my 4 premiership fancies as we speak.
So you're drawing a line at 8 for premiership hopes?
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
And clubs placed 9th, 10th and 11th there. You're still thinking they're in the finals?
I don't believe Melbourne and Gold Coast will play finals. I think Port Adelaide have got a great 5 weeks coming up. They've got Brisbane, Carlton, West Coast, Melbourne and Collingwood. So I think there's a great run there for them if they want it and they're good enough and they're hungry enough to try and make the 8.
Yep. The Giants were outstanding against Hawthorn on Saturday. We've known for some time they can run in waves, yet what we saw on the weekend, Lordo, was probably the most impressive aspect of what they can do, the pressure around the ball and the pressure against the 3-time winning premiership team.
Phenomenal pressure. They laid 63 tackles, 22 more than Hawthorn over the weekend, and they're prodigious talents, these guys, and they've never had to defend in their lives, and it's taken them 4 years to understand that you can't just run in waves and run off half-back, which we all love. They've got to defend, and to do this to Hawthorn, you could see the manic pressure. They got a taste for it, and they love doing it, and even this on Mitchell. Gets away with it. Caniglio, who played on him, got the better of him. Geez, that does a lot for them and their psychology moving forward.
Well, the stats are stacking up, aren't they, insofar as what is required to win a premiership. I mean, just in this game alone, their contested possession was up nearly 40 just in the one game. Their uncontested possession was up 54. Clearances plus 18. They took marks around the ground. That man there was an outstanding performer, not just in that game, but looming, isn't he, Lob, as a key to what they do.
Yeah, they're playing the perfect balance of football. And we all talk about the young guys. Let's not forget how good the leadership. Mumford, Scully, Ward, even Griffin when he comes in. Stevie Johnson, who we haven't touched on, kick 5. Their senior players are going really well.
It was Hawthorn-like in what they dished up. They've had moments in the past, but that was probably as bad as the successful era has been under Alistair Clarkson, Lauder. What was it? Do you put it down to just a one-off bad loss, or is there a little bit more to read into it?
Damo, I think time will tell. It's too early to say, you know, they're gone or they're not going to win a flag, you know, but I think the gap is definitely closed. I think this loss was coming to them because their last 3 weeks, even though they've won by 3 points, you can't keep coming from behind and expecting to win. So I think teams now have a belief against Hawthorn that they're beatable, which probably hasn't been the case though.
Even in an instance like this, like Birchall just doesn't do that as a rule, does he? I know, you know, when it's all said and done, it doesn't matter in the context of his career, but there's pressure there that's implied as much as real, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many flags you've won. When the heat comes on, guys look vulnerable, and Hawthorn did look that on the weekend.
Brisbane Lions were really good against the Swans at the Gabby yesterday, but the game was arguably overshadowed by what happened late in the piece when Callum Sinclair went down with this seemingly innocuous, yet serious injury because it was looking pretty serious at the time. And notice the time on the clock. The ball goes from that passage of play right down to the Lions' forward pocket. Then for some unknown reason, I say unknown because the players didn't know, the whistle goes while the ball's still alive because there was a suggestion a stretcher was about to come onto the ground, Lord, even though there was no vision of that stretcher actually going on. And Justin Lepich, I think, was entitled to be really upset about it. We'll take you through the rule in a moment, but let's just take a look at the raw emotion that Justin Lepich addressed the media probably 45 minutes to an hour after the game. It was still an issue in his mind that needed to be thrashed out.
I mean, I just don't know how the stretcher call and there's a live ball in your own forward 50, how the game's allowed to stop. I don't know the ruling behind it. Maybe I'm wrong, but my understanding is the player has to stop before a stretcher comes out, not the other way around. And we all saw it. The bloke tripped over his own feet and they called a stretcher. You know, we're 3 points down with a live ball in our forward 50 and they can get 18 players down there. So can we use it as a tactic now, can we? I'd be highly disappointed if it was used as a tactic when a bloke's gone down with a assumedly cramp and after tripping over his own feet, and a runner is called for a stretcher because they're down in numbers late in the game. We've got the ball in our hands in our forward 50. Cush, wouldn't you be filthy?
Nice and worked up there. The rule, Lordo, 7.3.2a. Upon being advised or noticing that a player requires a stretcher, the field umpire shall stop play at the earliest opportunity. There is a little bit of ambiguity there. It means that what the umpire did is not wrong by the rules, and I think sometimes the AFL likes the ambiguity around these rules. There needs to be a common sense rule, though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you don't stop play at that stage, given there's probably 200 metres between the injured player and the player.
Yeah, I think what Lepper got wrong there is tripped over his own feet and cramp. He'd regret those words because that didn't happen.
Yep.
But I can understand his frustration. They got that wrong over the weekend. I don't care what the rule is, Damo. Go upstairs after the show because that's not fair on the Brisbane Lions. The player was in no harm there whatsoever. And it can be used as a tactic in future if they're going to stop a game at that point in time.
I think we need a statement from the AFL today just to say what goes on in the future. And while there is ambiguity around that rule, I think it just leaves it open for use of it. Now, we're not suggesting the Swans did, but Justin Lepich just asked the question. We need an answer to it. Port Adelaide went into that game on Saturday night against Richmond in equal doses of pressure, wasn't it? One team emerged as serious, I suppose, victors when it came to dealing with that pressure, but Richmond did they?
No, they didn't. He was brave at selection too, Ken Hinkley. He had injured players. He dropped Matthew Lobie, which I thought he went in with a 2-game ruckman in Howard, but they went a smaller defence as well. No Trengove, as you said, no Carla. I think maybe they're better without those two, Damo.
Really?
So, I think that I thought Homsch and Jonas and Pittard and Broadbent, their run and carry, I think, made Port a better side.
And also the absence of Gray and also Wingard as well was a factor that actually worked for them with the replacements.
Yeah, it was a brave win. They've still got a lot of work to do. They've got Brisbane this week, so they can get on a mini roll here, the Port Adelaide. And it was good to see that they were playing still. I thought they'd lacked heart, they lacked courage, but that seemed to be back on the weekend.
Only 27,000 people turned up for that. That's a statement in itself. Damien Hardwick is keen to, I suppose, control the narrative, as Ross Lyon did last week at Fremantle, Lotto. No rebuild, according to him. Do you see it that way? And should there be a rebuild?
I think supporters hate hearing that word, so they're being smart there with their wording with that. But I think that their recruiting's been really poor in that they've topped up. They said because of compromised drafts they've had to do that, but still they're stalling the development of others. And they still rely too much on their top-end talent. So they've got to go back to the draft. I wouldn't be trying to get a Treloar in, which they tried, a Hanbury. Just try and get the earliest draft selections you possibly can. They may even have to trade out a star to get even more picks in, and that's where I think the build comes from. Because they haven't got... I couldn't name their best young player at the moment.
OK, so someone like a Delidio out?
I don't know who it is, Damo, but there's probably not too many. It's Delidio, Rance, Revolt, Cochin. They're their best players, but maybe they have to be bold and get someone out to bring in some early picks.
Okay. Collingwood got smashed at the start and the end of their game against West Coast in Perth, and they were coming at various stages. They probably weren't going to get near them, but Oxley slipping over here, combined with Frost making a mistake here, and then Smith, it killed whatever hope they had, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, they were coming hard. I thought their third quarter was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They had a shocking first quarter. West Coast kicked the first 5 goals. They were the better side for a large chunk of the game, and for this to happen... Buckley would be ropeable, as Collingwood fans should be, because they are the fundamentals that you cannot afford to do slip over in defence.
OK, fundamentals. They got the wrong boots on.
Well, Sheedy used to get us in and say, show me your boots if someone slipped like that. And if you had moulds on, they'd be all hell to pay. So I'm not sure how the boots have changed in the last 6 years, but that's unforgivable, slipping over like that.
Does Travis Cloak get back in? Has played 2 games in the VFL now.
Yeah, he was much better on the weekend. He's had his penance there for 2 weeks, and they need him in there, to be honest. I think Brodie Grundy has become a real weakness in the ruck.
Right.
Cannot get his hands on the ball. Nat Nui was dominant. Won the game for the West Coast Eagles. I think Cox needs to take more ruck work and Cloak back in that forward line, maybe Grundy out.
Yep. Former Collingwood player who hasn't been spoken about in glowing terms for a long time, probably back into 2011, Lordo, we last referred to him in a very positive way. Dale Thomas at Carlton seems to finally be getting it together.
Yeah, fantastic for Dale. 31 disposals. He used the ball extremely well, which has been a criticism of him. His tackling has always been a feature. I remember Ross Lyon said he's the best player in the game, or top 3 players in the game, around that prep grand final era of Collingwood. So back to that explosive running, this disposal here, hitting targets, not trying to kick it too far, playing to his limitations. Great to see him back because he probably thought the game had passed him by.
Yeah, and 3 goals in that key win the previous week against Fremantle in Perth too. He's now putting it together. He's been quite solid all year. Jake Stringer, Lordo, had an interesting game against the Bulldogs, North Melbourne on Friday night, and was out of position at various stages. Luke Beveridge was quite critical, in a very fair way too, post-match, but take us through what he's doing wrong, please.
Well, there's the way teams are pressing up with the ball, Jake's seeing opportunities to duck out the back. it's cheating in a sense, and it's also looking for an easy option. But Beveridge also said he's trying to win the car every week. I think I'd give Stringer a video of Nick Riewoldt and say, watch how this man plays football.
Yep.
He comes at the ball, he leads back and keeps coming back at the ball. He's really easy to play against at the moment, and great players do the simple things well.
Yep.
Jake's not doing simple things.
And even that, just has to bring it to ground.
Exactly. He's been out of form for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Is it easily fixable?
I think so. But he's got to play more conventional. He's got a highlights reel, but there's nothing simple about the way he's playing. He's got to get back to basics.
Okay, James Stratton.
Ben Stratton,
sorry, knocked out James Frawley, or nearly knocked out James Frawley. How many weeks did he get, Woody?
Well, I suppose I sort of feel for him here. I think he's trying to protect his player. At the last minute, he thinks, OK, I've got to get out of the way, and he just clips him. So probably get 2 weeks here if it was an opposition player. But
That's
trying
the
to get
quirk, isn't it? If that hadn't been an opposition player, he might be looking at it, certainly a fine.
He would be, yeah. That was Hawthorn's night. Nothing went right for them.
Hey, Tom Liberatore had an awkward night against North Melbourne, all because of this man here, Robbie Tarrant. Initially corked him nastily. It took him a while to get back on the ground. You can see he's having to run it out. And then when he did get back on the ground, finally, Lotto, in the next quarter, he had this done to him.
Nothing worse than getting a cork like that early in the game and then having a hanger taken on your back. I think Tarrant came out worse for wear, but a knee to the back of the head wasn't Liver or the Bulldogs' night on Friday night.
Thanks, Lotto.
Thanks, Damo.
And thank you for joining us on Access All Areas. Have a good week. We'll catch you next Monday. Goodbye.